Hello.
How are you?
I'm 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 doing okay, except I am a little disturbed that I came in here representing the advocacy group and I see that my son Troy is sitting in the office. So
Yeah,
of course I'm
I'm
concerned.
sorry about that. I actually just had him sent down from another teacher. I only just got the information. I'm very unfamiliar with what's happening other than what the teacher wrote. So I do want to talk to Troy later and get his side of the story because I do value his input.
What did the teacher write about him? Because
Uh,
I this is not new. I
yeah.
just want to know.
The teacher said that he tried to move Troy in the classroom and Troy didn't want to move. I'm not sure if that may be because maybe Troy has maybe a vision problem and can't see the board, and maybe that's why he didn't want to move. So I do want to get his side of the story for that.
Well, this isn't the first time that these something like this has happened in Mr.
Okay.
White's classroom. And I'm sure that Troy, as I do, feel like he's being discriminated against. He will come home and say things that, um, like he'll drop a pencil and Mr. White yells at him for that, like, pick up that pencil,
Okay.
or why did you? He looks at it as Troy doing things on purpose when he's not. And then Troy will say, well, somebody across the room dropped a pencil and he never said anything to him about that, or her, whatever the case may be. So it's clearly being more apparent to my husband and I as parents that Mr. White is really picking on our son. And sadly enough, we really think it's got something to do with the discrimination uh,
Okay.
issue that Mr. White has. I mean, our son is a good boy.
Mhm.
And I know every parent thinks that, but he really is a good boy. He doesn't have any problems in any other classrooms. It's
Okay.
just this one, it's spilling over to his peers because he'll come home and say that out in the playground or at lunchtime, at recess, whatever, kids are now picking on him because Mr. White is picking on him. So they feel
Okay.
emboldened to also do things and make
So
fun
they're
of him.
feeding off of Mr. White's energy.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Is
So
Mr.
I
White the
really,
only teacher that's doing this?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I do want to
So
make a note of that because I wasn't sure if there were other teachers who were possibly involved.
it's just Mr. White. And so
Okay.
therefore, I want to request that my son be taken out of his classroom,
Okay.
um, and given an opportunity to excel in another classroom, with a different teacher.
Do you have a recommendation of which teacher he would most likely work well with?
At this point, I do not. I mean, I don't want, um, I do understand that teachers have reputations and,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say that, well, I've heard that this other teacher's a better teacher. I don't want to get into that. I just
No,
feel
I
that
get it.
any other teacher other than Mr. White would be good for Troy.
Okay, so I will look into seeing if we can move him out of that classroom. I also do want to talk to Mr. White as well and get understanding of what's going on in the classroom, get his side of the story, and as I am getting your side of the story as well. Um, I did see that you wanted to also talk about a professional development day. I love that idea, and I would love to implement that at the beginning of next month's professional development day. Do you have any recommendations for that?
Well, yes, like I said, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to focus because I'm so worried about my son here. But
Absolutely.
the advocacy group that I'm representing today, we are concerned about a number of things,
Okay.
particularly um, something that just comes to my mind immediately is that the number of minority students who are being suspended. It feels
Yeah,
like that's a large, just a huge discrepancy, a large amount of minority students, and that shouldn't be happening. Um,
agree. Now, obviously, I'd have to look at all the reasons why the kids are being suspended. If it's fighting, I can understand that. But if it's something small and simple, then they should not be suspended for that.
Correct.
Okay.
Um, so that you can see why, as the advocacy group, we feel like that's really total discrimination.
Mhm.
Um, Also, we're concerned that there's a small amount of minority students enrolled in the gifted and honors programs. I mean,
Okay.
if you look at those statistics, district-wide, just a small amount of minority students, a small
Yeah.
population are enrolled in gifted and honors programs. So that's another concern we have.
So the
So the
reason for
reason
the
we
uh honors and gifted programs is that's all based on data. So when we test the students based on their grades, comprehension of the subject matter, that is how we determine our classes. Now, I would love for more students to be involved in those groups. Maybe we can do another test to see how they're doing and who could be advanced into those groups. Do you have any ideas, like areas that they would flourish in?
I don't. I mean, I can only speak for my son. I mean, he does like math. I mean,
Okay.
and he, I can see his grades dropping though because of Mr. White. If we go back to
Yes.
that situation, because he'll come home and this does his homework and before all of this started, I mean, this just is an accumulation of situations with Mr. White. And before he would come home and be eager to get into his homework and perhaps math would be the first thing he would do. And now he kind of like, he doesn't,
Doesn't want to do it.
no, he just is feeling, like I said, discriminated against and doesn't have that interest in math. But prior to this, all these situations with Mr. White, I would say that he really did excel in math. So that's an area that you're thinking of looking into with testing. I guess for everybody, not just the minority students, but
Yeah. Well, I know that Keystones are coming up not that long in the high school, and I know PSSAs are coming up for us here in the middle school. So that would be a good time for us to evaluate, see where our data is for not just your son Troy, but for all the students. And hopefully
correct.
we can get them placed for the next coming year. Would that work for you?
I think that's a good option. Yeah. Mhm.
All
And
right.
and the other thing is that there's just really a large minority of, I mean, a large population of minority students who are in the dropout population district.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you look at those statistics and say, okay, why is that happening here? This is the third, in my opinion, the third thing that's showing discrimination district-wide.
Yeah.
Um, so
So regarding the dropout situation, is that mostly at the high school or is that for us here at the middle school?
well, it would be mostly at the high school.
Okay.
But in our opinion here with the advocacy group, I mean, it starts in middle school. It actually starts in elementary school,
Absolutely.
to build up cultural diversity and acceptance.
Mhm.
If it is tending to fester until students reach the high school level, then they're going to drop out because they feel no need, see no need for education.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, at one point I was a middle school teacher and I saw a lot of our kids who were truant. They did not want to come to school.
right.
Now some of the kids said, "Oh, I've got another job making money. I don't make money here, so that's why I'm not going to come." Some kids said, "Oh, I got to take care of my younger siblings." Some just said, "I got pregnant. I don't want to come to school anymore because I got to focus on my own mental well-being and the health of my child." So there's a lot of different reasons someone could drop out, and we need to figure out what the main source of all of those reasons are, and we need to try to rectify it as soon as possible.
Correct. And like I said, it actually starts at the elementary level. And then there's, because and middle school is, that's why
Challenging
they call
enough.
it right, middle school is right there, trying to bridge that gap between elementary and high school. So
Exactly.
I think the middle school years are extremely important. And that's why I'm here,
Yes,
um,
they are.
to hopefully correct some of these issues before my son gets to high school and also trying to build things here for the middle school.
I would like to try to see if we can implement some sort of social emotional learning as soon as possible. So that way we can try to figure out why people would want to leave the school before their schooling ends and try to convince them the importance of an education.
Correct. And even to be honest, I have some neighbors who are feeling like they might even actually move before their
Mm.
child gets to the high school because they're so adamant about these discrepancies that are being shown toward their children.
Okay.
So, it's
And,
not
and
just
I'm assuming these neighbors are also minority neighbors.
yes.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So, it's not just looking at the dropout rate, but families who would actually consider moving
Yeah.
is kind of a big step.
And we want to make sure all of our students and their parents feel welcome in our district.
Exactly, exactly. And also our group is seeing that there's a need for more staff development
Mhm.
um, on multicultural education and diversity. Sure,
Yeah,
what your staff.
I think that would be something we will want to bring up at the PD meeting that I was discussing with you earlier, and trying to figure out how we can help these students, and also their families, and also be more culturally aware of what's going on in our district. The PD could be revolved around DEI as well, emphasis on the equity portion,
Mhm.
because we know everyone has their own things that are happening at home. I know that when I was growing up, it was a lot more simplified because we didn't have technology. But I also know that I struggled severely in mathematics. Now, granted, I had a father who was there to help me, who was an accountant. Not everyone has that luxury of who's available. They might have a parent who works night shifts and can't have somebody there to help and sit down with them and go over homework. So we just need to be more aware of that.
Exactly. And the advocacy group that I represent, we are very much available to be a part of any staff development that
I
you
would
might
like that.
implement.
Yeah.
Yes.
It, I would very much like to have a couple members from your advocacy group be part of that so that way you guys can have a say and know exactly what is being said here. So there's
Right.
no, oh, I heard this from somebody else.
Yes. Transparency is paramount on our list of things. So,
Absolutely.
um, also, there's something else that I need to bring up is that the advocacy group is looking at how the district, and again, a lot of these things are district wide, but ultimately affect the middle school, can increase multicultural population in your staffing, in administration, and in your teaching staff. There's very, very few teachers of color within, not only within your building, but within, district wide.
Yeah,
And
and I will say that, I mean, for most of the people that were here, they were here when I got here.
mm,
My philosophy is the best teacher will teach. For me, if you are purple with yellow polka dots, but you know exactly what to do, I want to hire you.
mhm.
So I want to make sure that all my students are able to learn from the best, most qualified teachers imaginable. And if someone looks differently, so be it. They're a good teacher. I mean, I'm certainly not the thinnest person in the world, but I was a good teacher at one point. So I want to make sure that everybody is welcome. I also want to make sure that my students who feel like it's another teacher who doesn't look like me doesn't feel that the person is going to treat them differently just because they look differently.
And see, that's what I think is going on with Mr. White. I think, looks
Yeah,
at
and
my
I want to
son.
make, like I said in the beginning, I want to make sure I also talk with him and see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm just really, really concerned because Troy is or has been a scholar and an athlete. He participates in sports. I mean,
Yeah, I've seen it in the newspaper. He's a good kid.
yeah, and for him to come home, it just breaks my heart for him to come home and
Yeah.
say, Mr. White's did it again. I asked to go to the bathroom and he said no. Like, well, how can you refuse this child to go to the bathroom? Or he thinks
Yeah.
I'm just, wanting to get out of class. He's not.
Yeah. And
He,
I want to also verify that with all of his other teachers as well. So I can say, well, if you say this is the happening, I have it from another teacher who has some that this is not happening. So that way I
yeah.
can bring data to the table so I can advocate for your son as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As a parent, it's not a good feeling to send your child off to
Um,
school feeling like, and if, we certainly don't want to have to move, as our neighbors are considering. We want to stay in this district. It is a good district. I think there's a lot of improvement that could be made. And so I'm hopeful that as a new principal coming in, your agenda is probably filled with a lot of to-do things. But
yeah, I've
I'd
got a list.
like to try to make this a priority for
Yeah.
you, especially with my son. And my one question is he still sitting in the office or is he being sent back to his classroom?
I'm gonna probably send him back to his classroom after I sit down with him and get his side of the story as well.
Okay, so he's actually still out in the office now as
Well,
we speak.
I've been here with you, so I haven't had a chance to even talk with him. Other than when you came in, you saw me outside. I had barely had a chance to talk with him, and I said, I would like to talk with you, but I'm going to a meeting with your mom. Can you wait here? And he said,
Right,
yes.
right. But I mean, he's missing instructional time. Does he have something to do that's
Yeah, he has a
time
notebook.
worthy?
Yeah, he has a notebook with him. I'm assuming he's doing work for something.
Okay, all right, because I don't want him to miss any instructional time. It's just
I
like,
get it.
yeah, okay. Well, I do have another meeting to go to in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to end this conversation. But I appreciate your concern.
Yep.
Bottom
And
line
I'll send a
is,
follow-up email to you discussing everything that we discussed today. And
okay, that would be
hopefully
good.
I can get to Mr. White before the end of the day today, get his side of the story, and see what we can do moving forward. I will also try to talk with the other math teachers and see if any of them would be willing to take Troy on as a student. The good news is the marking period is almost over, so we could
Mhm.
easily just transition him into a new classroom, and it really probably won't make much of a difference with his peers because new marking period, new students.
Right, right. Okay, that was my next question, to keep that plan in the background, and because I would hate to have him pulled out, but on the other hand, that might be the only option
If it's
because
necessary, we will do that.
yes, okay, perfect. All right, thank you very much.
You're very welcome and have a wonderful day, Ms. Johnson. Johnson, I'm sorry.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye.